Hello everyone, welcome to the 6th global judging session for virtual teams who have been working over 48 hours to address climate change issues, working with or inspired by some of the leading NGOs and challenge partners that we've had around the world as part of the Geeklist Hack for Good 0.6. The theme of this session is digital activism and consumer behavior. And we are joined by two wonderful judges, Thomas Stocking, who's CEO of Gandhi.net, and has very generously and usefully donated free domain names and hosting to all teams launching projects at Hack for Good. Thank you, Thomas. Good to see you again.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
And also, we are joined by Peter Olson, who's Director and Creative Technologist at IDEO. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Dan. Really happy to be here.
Thank you very much. And I believe listening in we have Jon Warnow from 350.org as well, who sadly can't join us on video, but he will be listening in and providing feedback at a later point. All right, so we have two teams to check out today. We have Start Agree and Green Fairy, and we're going to start with Start Agree. That seems to make sense. So before we get into the presentation, Thomas and Peter, I wonder if you might share a few words about what you look for in general from projects I'm looking for today, and any kind of factors that you think are important.
Sure. Well, of course, the topical importance of the project to the stated goal for the Hack for Good to address climate change is really paramount. Other than that, I'm looking for projects which show a commitment, show a lot of work, a lot of allowances there, but just something that should come through that the team is really committed to the idea and has got the wherewithal to push it ahead if it goes and gets passes the peer review.
Yeah, and I'm looking. I think everything that Thomas said was really great, and I think I'm also looking for applications that really give consumers, since this is the consumer behavior session, really give consumers the information or the tools to help adjust and modify their behavior, as it relates to their climate footprint and their carbon footprint and things like that.
All right, great. So these are some factors to bear in mind, and we'll start with Josh, who I think may be one of our youngest participants in Geeklist Hack for Good. Josh, how are you doing? How did you enjoy the weekend?
It was great. There was a lot of sleep.
Right. Same as London.
Yeah, it was pretty stressful. We managed to finish it
hello, Josh. We lost you. Sorry for a second there.
just in time. I think.
Losing. Oh no.
Josh, are you still with us?
Yeah. Hello.
Okay. I've just turned off your video stream, and that should be better. Although we'll want to turn it back on for the demo. So you were working with a team in several countries, I believe.
Yes. So we had Matt, who was in San Francisco. He was our designer. He actually designed the logos and came up with like a color scheme that we could use. He also created HTML templates for the website. We'll demo that later. He was basically, without him, it wouldn't have worked. It would have been like plain text, and that's it. And then we had Cohen and Myron, or something like that. They were in the Netherlands, and they basically came up with the idea and made the Twitter part of it. And then I made the kind of back-end database part. So it was a very diverse team. Kind of had to work with different time zones and stuff, but it was all great fun.
Great, and we've got Camille, our ambassador from Amsterdam, on the line to help us with pronunciation of Dutch names.
Yeah, it's Koen and Myron.
There we go. All right, so Josh, let's turn on your video, and I'll hand over to you and let you show us what you've built. And this was addressing more the sort of citizen activism and consumer pressure, wasn't it?
Yes. So, Startagree is a tool to vote through social media, and this is good because anyone can vote through social media as long as they have internet. And it was brought to you by hackers from around the globe. Oh, wow, no. International climate negotiations are very difficult, and we would like to ask you, do you feel personally engaged and represented?
Josh, I think you forgot the presentation on the screen share.
Is it not on the thing?
Yeah, you need to press the screen share button.
Oh, I thought I did.
On the left.
And then can you...
I think when I turned your video off, it booted you out.
Ah, maybe that's it.
Yes. Oh, we do have Jon with us now.
You see that?
Twice. Yes.
Cool. So, a Harvard study shows that expanding the pie is the best way to make negotiations end in a win-win situation. If you bring something creative to the negotiation table, consensus is nearer than ever. We combine these insights from the Harvard study with hacking and founded Startagree. Startagree allows the crowd to put their feet in the door of the ivory tower where global climate negotiations are taking place. We've built a smart social media voting system that gives the crowd a voice, and by this manner hands them the tools to build global consensus on complex issues. When a crowd gets involved, they multiply the negotiation wisdom by a factor in the millions. On top of that, online crowd participation provides valuable data that, if combined with advanced mining techniques, can reveal opportunities for consensus that we never dared to dream of. As an example, we show how greater consensus can be reached by mining the data. Suppose someone tweets the following: people should be rewarded if they plant trees. The votes counted are represented by the green and red bar, the green indicating yes and the red indicating no. It also shows that there wasn't really a clear winner. The same applies to if someone proposed make water for showering more expensive. We come up with the same outcome. It's not very clear. The voting results are open data, so imagine data mining algorithms analyzing the data. For example, the data intelligence might reveal an overlap between the two voting groups. These kind of insights allow us to combine previously unrelated statements into a single statement which does reach an impressive consensus, such as rewarding for planting trees and showering short. And this is just one example. But take a moment and imagine what happens if people around the world would join this adventure. At the moment, StartAgree is a 100% Twitter-based system, so you just need a profile on Twitter to join the negotiations. Just like Twitter, we will anonymize and open up our data from the very start. For them, it turned out to be the best way to boost innovation and stimulate adoption. We will work on providing global access by using text messaging system. This technology allows people from rural areas, for example in Africa, to be included. We'll work on our prototype is live and includes all basic functionality. You can visit our Twitter page and join us on the way to global climate consensus. StartAgree, the tool to build global consensus through social media voting. If we agree today, we can change the world for good. So if I go to startagree.com, then you can see our current prototype. It's pretty basic, so we tweet with the Make a Difference tweet, which was to see if StartAgree would make a difference. So there are one suggestion here. StartAgree can make a difference to climate change. There were 8 votes. Some people voted no, some people voted yes, and you end up with 87.5% of people voting yes. These are failed tweets because people didn't use the format, but we'll be looking to fix that in the future. So you can actually vote if you click here. Click vote. And it will take you to Twitter where you can then sign in and tweet. And then that will update the StartAgree page. That's it. Does anybody have any questions?
I see that you've got an independent website there that links back to Twitter. Is this something that you would promote on Twitter? I mean, would you try to figure out a way to maybe work with Twitter as part of your strategy?
We're hoping that the way that it works, it will be promoting itself on Twitter. So as issues get popular, they will get to the top of the Twitter, and the hashtags will get trending, and then people can easily see the issues and vote for them themselves.
Okay, it's self-promoting.
Yes.
Can you explain sort of your vision for the SMS experience? I feel with climate change, the most impacted people are the people who have least access to cool things like smartphones and ways to interact with things. So the lower tech user experience is going to be very important for the success of a product like this.
Yes, so in the future we are looking to use Twilio, which is a text messaging system, and this will reach out to people who don't have internet, like in African countries or Asian countries or just countries where they don't have internet. The way this will work is they'll text the number with the same format as a tweet, and it's ideal because a tweet is actually 140 characters, the same as a text.
And how are results filtered up to people who are decision makers that can really impact climate change policy or consumer behavior? Is it just through the open data that is provided through the application?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
So how does the data get out of the application into decision makers, policy makers, think tanks, all of the people who have key decision-making impact on climate change?
So Josh, I think he means that the application is totally open, so everyone can use the data. So can you explain a little bit more about that, Josh?
So because it's open, anyone can see it, and as it is self-promoting, it will promote itself. So the people who maybe are making the decisions will be able to see it because it is high on their Twitter feed and it's high, and people will be talking about it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so the goal is to make the data available to decision makers, and they'll passively ingest that and base decisions upon the available data.
So anyone can access this application and get the data out of it, and anyone can also post their statements. Josh, correct me if I'm wrong here. So that's the main idea. And also, since they use the Twitter API that's fully open, their application is also fully open, allowing other developers to make things themselves with this data and actually build up on this application themselves. So that's the main idea, because they basically build up on what Twitter did with their API, and people build application on that. They're doing the same and are actually using that openness of Twitter as well. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So do you envision other applications besides the ability to weigh in on climate conferences?
Yes, so at the moment its main purpose is for climate change, but it can easily be transferred to any consensus.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
Okay.
No more questions from me?
Good from you as well, Peter.
Yeah, I think I guess I had one just quick one. Is how do you keep people from astroturfing or gaming the system? Like, how do you keep, say, a lobbying group from voting no on Start Agree, being able to change, make a difference in the world versus yes?
Josh, do you want me to answer this one?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's very easy, so based on the profile of the user, you can easily see whether they are like a faulty user or not, because faulty users mostly have like not a lot of followers and that kind of thing. So systems can be developed to detect that kind of things. And also people will see statements while they get voted up. They will start voting no or yes, whether it's like something they really don't want. Basically, we're trusting the crowd as a whole. Basically, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, because.
Well, the main idea is giving power to the people. So if they want to try to destroy climate change and destroy whatever consensus we're trying to do, then they are free to do that. Yes, we'll try to develop systems to stop it, but the whole idea is giving power to the people.
And you mentioned also data analytics on some of the data that you collect to be able to identify people who perhaps use the same Twitter account over and over and over, or have overlap between particular different questions. So theoretically, I could just imagine that some of those data analytic techniques could be used to root out the people who are trying to game the system. That's not a trivial undertaking, though.
For sure.
Right. Well, as with any hackathon project, it's certainly not over within the 48 hours. So I think we'll move on to our next team, Green Fairy, and we're going to see. So we have one of the team with us, Shilpi. Hi. Thanks, Josh, for sharing, and Camille for joining as well.
Yeah. Thank you,
No
guys.
problem.
Cool.
No problem.
Thanks. Bye.
So we're joined by Shilpi, and we're going to see a pre-recorded video of the man behind the IDEO. Shilpi, can you unmute yourself? Oh, here we are. Here we are. Hi.
Okay, great. Yeah. Hi, everyone.
Yes.
So I think we're going to go straight to the pre-recorded video that was submitted.
Do you want to introduce yourself quickly? Where are you? What do you do? Who did you work with over the weekend?
Yeah, so I worked at the San Francisco hackathon location, and my team started growing halfway through, but the main members that really did a lot, Vivian Mukherjee, Gregory Sang, and myself and Carl Nicholas were the core team, and we started expanding and testing a little bit more. Just like a quick intro to what the project was, is a sponsored project that was supposed to be a shopping aid. So while you're online shopping, the app would kind of recognize what website you're on and then give a green score, which is calculated by climate counts, and it has to do with how actively supporting the environment the company is. So what our app does is it's just a Chrome extension that'll display the score and then allow you to compare it to other companies of that type, so that if one company has a very low green score, you can change websites and pick a company that has a little bit higher score or that's really doing a lot. So I don't have the video on me right now.
Cool. I will.
Pardon? Not sure the connection is.
It's interesting how there would be a lot more fluid. People thought we can and converge on the one.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if my connection is. Okay.
Cool. So I'm going to load up the video in here. I'm going to use the YouTube.
I just posted the link in the side chat to the video.
Okay. Well, I'm going to press the YouTube button there. And then it will play. Whoops, we're getting some feedback. Sorry about that. Okay, can everyone see the video now? Thumbs up or thumbs down if people can see the video? No, okay. So you might need to press on the left-hand side, the YouTube app within Hangouts. Peter, Thomas, have you got that? Or you? Can you see the video there?
Yeah, I can see it now.
Yep. Yeah.
Not playing yet, but it is.
No, so I think if I press play, it will play. And for anyone watching on YouTube, I'll put it in the description in a couple of seconds as well. So here we go with the video. Shilpi, do you want me just to play the video all the way through? And then you can answer questions at the end? Yep, cool. All right, here we go. Sorry about that. Here we are. Okay. Anything you want to add, Shilpi?
Not too much, other than that we ended up figuring out what the API needed to include in addition to what they already have, which was really domain names for websites, so that in case a website or a company didn't have its name in the domain name, because that's how we figured out what the company was. We kind of like parsed the domain name and tried to match that with something in the API. So if we could have a domain name for that, that would be an improvement, as well as a couple of other little things, like whether or not a company has changed relative to that, which we didn't point out in the video, but that is one of the sections of pieces of information, was whether or not the companies, even if the score is low, maybe they just started and they're trying to improve, so you can see that information as well.
Great. Thomas, Peter, what do you think of this? Sorry, I forgot to unmute you. Thomas, I'll let you go first since we're
am I there now? Yeah, that is always a trick, isn't it? Sometimes the domain name doesn't have very much to do with the company that's being that's presenting here the content that you want. You know, it's interesting. I think the idea is a very solid one in terms of what it covers. That is how green is the score for the company. I'm just wondering to other criteria that happen to be useful or good for other things. For instance, you know, if there is a company that makes clothing, for instance, and they use sweatshop labor, but they have a good environmental score, this might actually be something that people are also concerned about. So if there's any kind of thought of, you know, integrating maybe another NGO into the same API, another type of nonprofit into the same API.
Yeah, that would be really nice, and then creating a nice uniform standard for all of the different climate score company or databases would be really useful for us. Something that we found was that sometimes the format wasn't uniform, or there were certain years missing, which is really important to figuring out whether or not a company is doing better or worse than the previous year. So those were useful. It's also kind of fun. I have it installed in my browser, and I'll go to different websites, and it'll say what their score is, and sometimes they're not what you expect at all. So I think it really will make a difference when people are shopping, even if they're not necessarily shopping, they just happen to be on a web page of a company that's listed. You'll still be able to see the score and see how they're doing.
I guess the follow-up question to that is that, you know, I noticed there's of course only just a few companies listed there, and the categories seem to be kind of limited. Like, you know, internet software is one category, but there's actually many different kinds of software on the internet. So are you thinking that the categorization is going to come from the I forget the name of the nonprofit you're working with, but are they going to develop this? Climate Counts, right. Is Climate Counts going to come up with the categories, or are you going to rely on the general public who's using this to come up with categories, or the companies themselves to categorize themselves?
Well, right now we're only working on 22 different categories. I think it'll be most useful for companies to categorize themselves because they really know. I mean, users could also do that as well, but then it becomes more difficult to get a lot of users to do that because it's not part of the app form. But actually, now that you mention it, I guess what we could do is when we ask for feedback for a company that we haven't seen before, which is if we don't have data, then you have a form to request information. You can just have a drop-down that says, what do you feel like categorizes this best? And that could be a solution to that problem. But I'm glad you brought it up.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Peter, some thoughts from you on this one?
Sure. Yeah, I think first of all, I think this type of application is very useful in communicating information very quickly to consumers. it kind of reminds me of in New York and a lot of other cities, chain restaurants have to put calorie counts by their meals, and you can kind of immediately make a purchase decision based on that information that's been given to you. I think that type of getting context to consumers is very important, and this app does that pretty simply and effectively. I had a question about some of the so the pie chart that shows up is intended to show how much the companies could improve to get to 100% score. Is that correct?
No, so since the version that was demoed, we removed one of the graphs, and the real purpose of that graph is to see, relative to the total number of points within the sector, how many points does that one company that you're on the website of have. So it's really just to see relative to other competitors in the sector to get an idea of how big their score is. But we really wanted to show that we were capable of showing graphically the information. What exactly that content is most likely to change once the API is a little bit more fleshed out, because consumers probably really want to know which companies to pick more than the relative score.
Yeah, I think as it's iterated on, it's important to maybe explore how to be very clear about what's being presented with that graph and what it's supposed to convey. Like, for example, if it's sort of a ranking thing, maybe another graph format like a bar graph or a linear graph might be more appropriate to display that. The other thing I think I would have liked to have seen is an understanding of, I see, like if you click on it while the Hangout is in place, you see, it looks at Google's domain name and then gives Google's score, and I would have liked to be able to get directly to Google's page or some more context about why Google has that score or another company has a score relative to other companies quickly. Either inside the extension or as a link out. So, because I think as consumers understand, if I'm visiting a internet service provider's page, most of their carbon footprint comes from X, versus a transportation company, most of their carbon footprint comes from Y, and even understanding how different sectors compare in terms of the footprint that they have. But yeah, I really like the concept for this app. It's very simple. It does what it does very quickly and simply, and it I think as the interface evolves and as the APIs evolve, I think it could be a potentially very powerful thing.
Yeah, actually, speaking of linking it to the website, we initially tried doing that, and we were like kind of on a Google search to find the companies, and then we decided that was just not reliable. So they do have the scores next to them now.
Yeah.
Also, we do have a latest version, which was after the code deadline, which includes a little bit more information, looks a little bit more sleek, and explains what the graph does a little bit more.
Cool.
Oh, the last thing I really wanted to point out was
if you have to explain a graph, it probably does need some iteration.
That's a good point. That's a good point. The other nice thing was that IDEO, who's doing a lot of the work with the APIs, found that you can actually display the score on the extension just as a pop-up. So as you're browsing, it'll refresh and it'll just tell you what the score is. So earlier when you were talking about having the calories listed, it was kind of nice. So that was
I noticed that. That's a nice little detail.
It almost makes it passive and slightly subconscious, right? You just see it. It could be different color even, red, amber, green.
It's a good way the 4-character limit that Chrome allows you to have in the little pop-ups of the extensions.
Well, it's from 0 to 100, so we have that.
There was a comment from Jon as well. And I must say, Jon, thank you for your perseverance in making this call. Jon's obviously gearing up for Climate Week New York and the People's Climate March and a whole lot of digital and non-digital activism. Jon is the digital director of 350.org. And Jon asks Shilpi mainly whether you considered integrating or collaborating with other browser extensions that may do similar things, work on rating companies or products. And I guess where he's getting to is there's already a user base with those active, and you wouldn't need to grow a user base of your own.
Mm-hmm. I think that it's important to at least advertise with other Chrome extensions. I haven't really looked too much into what other Chrome extensions would do. For example, if there's like more specific product information on certain pages, it would be nice to be able to link to that somehow if there's a database online. But I didn't put too much thought into that yet as far as how to spread it, unfortunately.
Okay. Okay, we're a little bit over time. Thomas, Peter, do you want to share any final thoughts or perhaps recommendations for where the teams might take each of these ideas in further development? And
Sure.
then we'll close off.
Sure. I as always, Dan, I'm impressed with the quality of the projects that come out of a Hack for Good event, and these two are no exception. And it's going to be very difficult to decide. I mean, it wouldn't be difficult to decide to recommend both of them to going on to the final judging, but we have to be fair to the other projects. I think, in terms of feedback for future development for Startagree, I think I really would suggest looking at what Twitter, just asking Twitter what they think of this idea and what they think of the possibility of either generating a community, this extension to their API, maybe integrating it even, because I think those people over Twitter are very innovative and they're always looking for new ideas, and this is a new idea. And I think for Green Fairy, the key here with any political, essentially this is a political thing, innovation is really publicity. So something along the lines of a transparency report, which is a pretty popular way of judging internet companies, at least in the hosting industry. Gandhi's working on our transparency report, for instance. Something along those lines where there's adoption from a large company like Google or Twitter or Facebook, something like that. But in each of the important sectors which contribute to climate change, oil exploration, transportation, things like that, if you can get some of those big companies to kind of sign on to having done the work and getting a good score and bragging about it, then that will drive the adoption of the browser extension. So that's where I would suggest you reach out, Startagree to Twitter, and Green Fairy to the key players in the big sectors that contribute to climate change.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with Thomas that these are both really interesting and creative applications, and I've been really impressed with both of them. I would say for Startagree, I would also look at how to make the data coming out of it actionable and easy to access by decision makers. I think making it open and transparent is a really good first step, but making it so that it's more in the face of decision makers and easy for them to get access to and make decisions with in less frictional ways, or with as little friction as possible, will really help it, ultimately guide the decision-making process. I also think, make sure that you have methods in place to make sure that the comments and votes you are getting are coming from legitimate users, so that that's not an excuse for people to ignore the product. For Green Fairy, again, I really like sort of the simplicity, and it does a few small things and does them well. I would look very closely at the user interface and make sure that you have very limited real estate to display a lot of information, and make sure that you are displaying the right information and giving context and other links out where appropriate. I think it's something where you can iterate quickly on a UI, and that gives you, the Chrome extension framework gives you a lot of ability to quickly iterate on that and play around with it, so use that to your advantage to make it a really clear presentation. That's
Thanks.
it.
Thank you both. Thank you, Thomas and Peter. John on the line had some final words as well. He wanted me to share. So he says, just general gratitude for everyone for their participation. It's so great to see folks coming at this from different angles and spending their time working on climate change. Let's keep rolling it. Let's keep it rolling, but beyond the hackathon weekend. And John is standing by, and I'm standing by if I can advise or help on any project moving forwards. So that's wonderful to hear, John. And yeah, absolutely agree. We need to keep all of these projects, we need to keep all of these projects rolling on beyond the hackathon, and let's go. We'll use technology and make a big impact in the world on climate change issues. Thank you all for participating today and for building what you've built and just being part of this this event. And I really welcome you to the Geeklist Core of Developers. Hack for Good was not only a hackathon, it was a training event. All teams who've produced and built and launched a project out of Hack for Good are now honorary members of the Core of Developers and on standby and available and ideally and hopefully actively working on projects to life on this planet. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thanks. Can I still say something after?
Thank you.
Go ahead, Camille. Yes.
Yeah, I really wanted to say that all the teams, even though one team didn't go through the judging process in Amsterdam, even though they were so intensively in their project, they still want to continue with it. So that's very impressive. And all the teams are really committed to it. So it's very amazing what they did last weekend.
Yeah, good point, Camille. And Hack for Good is a place where anyone with an idea can start a project, build it, and take it forward. It's about the passion and the spirit and the desire to make a difference. Okay, so we'll leave the judges to deliberate, and we'll announce the results first of all privately to the teams as soon as possible, and we'll be announcing the global final. All of the global finalists going into Wednesday's judging sessions. We'll announce those publicly tomorrow. Cool. Thank you all.
Thanks, Jon.
Nice to meet everyone.